Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin as well as other macro charts and indicators, including our favorite rainbow chart. So starting off with crypto fear and greed, you can see crypto still on the edge of extreme greed into high greed. Sure, if we make new all-time highs, we've been talking about this for what seems like about a month, then we can see that extreme greed territory. Is crypto going to follow the stock market? Is there a little bit of a lag effect? You can see as far as fear and greed that we are hovering pretty high. So maybe that's a sign that we are getting ready for a move into new all-time highs. And just zooming out from fear and greed, you can see after we completed that downtrend and sell off, we are making higher highs, higher lows. To me, I mean, if I were looking at this for a chart on TradingView, this to me would look bullish, like we're getting ready to break out. So I was last week sort of thinking that maybe we would get one more dip down in neutrality. However, the charts are showing us that it's keeping its strength, and that has me optimistic. Something else to consider is that the summertime tends to be the weakest time of the year for Bitcoin, especially getting towards September. However, out of all the summer months, June and July is the most positive. We just came out of June, which tends to be the weakest of all the months during the year, and it was okay. So the stock market tends to do pretty good going into early July. Then we get some sort of sideways price action. I think I have a stock chart up here somewhere. Here it is. Yeah, if you look at how stocks do in early July, we tend to, on average, get some sort of a pump and then go sideways, at least into October. So going back into crypto, we can see that, maybe we're going to get something to that effect. Maybe a July to August pump, a little bit of sideways downward action, and maybe a Q4 4-year cycle pump. We will see. I will note that, we'll jump ahead to the rainbow chart here. When we have had these pumps, okay, you can see where these tops have been. December 2013, this is the 4-year cycle people are talking about. December 2017. Now here was November 21. However, Altseason and the data shows it happened here in April. So keep that in mind when we take a look at that on these charts. We can see that 2013 overall pretty positive outside of June. 2017 summer pretty positive outside of September because of course 2020, remember we had Altseason right in here. The summer was okay. We had a strong July, and then that was kind of it. I'm wondering if this is sort of what we're going to get. So if we are in another 4-year cycle and we are within a year of that, then I am expecting the summer to not be so bad. And as we talk about the 4-year cycle, the reason why most of you are here, including myself, is the promise of Altseason. I'm going to try to keep saying this as clearly as I can. Altseason is when Bitcoin tops. It is too expensive to keep buying. And there is this rotation from Bitcoin into altcoins. When we see dominance go down, Bitcoin dominance being the percent of crypto money that's in Bitcoin, when we see that rotate into Ethereum. Last 2 cycles when that rotation happened, Ethereum did a 2x. And if Ethereum, the number one altcoin, is doing a 2x, then that is going to be even bigger for some of these other alts. So if Ethereum's going from, let's say it moves up to 400 billion by the time Bitcoin tops, and all of a sudden it's getting to 800 billion, those are times to pay attention to. So do keep that in mind that we have that rotation, but it truly happens once Bitcoin tops. Going over to this chart, I think it's just important to keep in the back of our mind because even on the way to the top, you can see when we've broken past former all-time highs, there can still be these big flash pullbacks. And I bring this up because this can flush people out. And remember, that alt season happens from here to here within 2 to 3 weeks after, from about here to here. I'll show you that on the chart. So on the way to the top, we can get a number of these pullbacks. You got to remain strong during those times. As far as the Altseason index, still hanging out pretty low, and in fact making some of the lowest lows we have in a while. We'll take a look at total 3 Bitcoin. There's some levels that I think we may have to hit, including for Bitcoin dominance, before we truly flip. But in my opinion, it may be setting up to where we get to those levels and then violently go in the opposite direction. Now, going over to the rainbow chart, this is a logarithmic at factor of 10 regression scale. It's going to remind ourselves of that, because what this is trying to do is it's trying to find a range of where the peaks and the valleys are, where the tops and the bottoms are for the price of Bitcoin, where it's too expensive and you should think of taking profits, and where it's a good area to buy. And one of the things that we've been talking about for a while is how these peaks are really regressing. And if anything, the top of this band should really be getting skinny. And I get comments like this every once in a while in these videos that the rainbow chart is broke and it's not perfect. Guys, no indicator or tool is perfect, but there is some truth to it. And I think even the older rainbow chart that did get invalidated in a sense, I kind of like how this one shows the tops even more. You can see how these tops regress over time, and if we just take the average of that regression, maybe we're going to have a top somewhere around that 200K area from where we are now. So just something to keep in mind. The yellow band isn't necessarily the median value of this. If you look at where the tops are going down a band each cycle, I'm taking a look at these orange bands. You can see they're 150 to the low 200K area as the areas where Bitcoin can top, and then we get that rotation. Now on my channel, I do other sorts of crypto videos. I talk about mining stocks. I talk about different altcoins. So subscribe to hear more about that. During the summertime, I'm thinking of maybe experimenting. For any of you subscribers, I might experiment with doing some digital shorts, doing 1 minute breakdown videos on different miners, altcoins. I might do that during the summer because I'm going to be busy and doing vacation stuff, and it may just be a way to test out some new things. So look out for that. If you guys like that content, let me know in the comments. But if it's not your cup of tea and you want me to go back to the old style, or maybe do a little bit of both, comment that below. But do keep in mind, this is just sort of a side hobby on top of my current job and what I already do. So anyways, let's get into Bitcoin. Let's start off with the weekly, and something that I'm liking that I'm seeing here on the weekly. We do have strength here. We did get a buy signal last week on Bitcoin. This is, as far as looking back, these are the highest weekly candles that we've ever had, candle bodies. So that's got to be good for Bitcoin. If we go over to the daily, what I also like seeing, we've been talking about this channel, and it looks like we're getting above that channel and maybe making it into support. So one of the sort of indicators or shapes that we've been looking for is that we may be seeing this inverse head and shoulders pattern come to a completion. And if Bitcoin all of a sudden starts breaking up, getting to about 113K, that could be huge for Bitcoin. And one of the areas we have marked out for Bitcoin next, the macro area, is that 2618 at 150K. Remember what we were talking about with the rainbow chart and these orange bands. You can look at, sorry, that's my cat's automatic feeder. Real professional stuff here. You can see that the 150K area, that orange band that goes 150 to low 200K, and you can see here that 2618, 150, the 3618, 200K. Now keep in mind, Bitcoin, each cycle has reached a lower fib amount or fib target, and yes, we have inflation that may change things this time around, but last cycle Bitcoin got to the 3618, 4236, and that's where it stalled out. So that's why, at best I'm taking a look somewhere in here for possible price targets, and there's a couple indicators that sort of confirm that. Now things can always change, and we have to be willing to be flexible, but if we throw on the log regression as well as the pi cycle moving average, that both of those topping ranges could be somewhere in that 2618 to 3618 area, again 150 to 210K. Now keep in mind that pi cycle moving average can go up, or will go up, as Bitcoin goes up. So I'm not sure if we're going to see Bitcoin get above its pi cycle moving average this time around, like it's done prior cycles. What happens with the pi cycle, at least on other charts that I've seen, is it can run into it and go sideways. So I'm wondering if we'll kind of see something like that, maybe a 200K Bitcoin, big psychological level, and then go sideways. But I'd say, first we have to get to 150K and see what happens. But those are some of the areas that I'm watching for Bitcoin. All right, let's get over to Bitcoin dominance and see what's happening here. So Bitcoin dominance, this area around 64% was an area I was long watching for to see maybe a potential top, and it just keeps being bullish. If we turn on our moving averages, one of the things to watch for when we are getting that rotation, there's different strength indicators that show it, but really you want to first see the 50-week moving average, this gold line, break down. And this is the indicator I use, EMA 20, 50, 100, 200. So this 50-week moving average, that's got to break. But one of the things we've been also watching for is that you can see the last couple cycles, this was 2017, and when we got Altseason, Bitcoin was topping right around here when it's retesting these lows. You can see that the one commonality between these cycles is that right before we have Altseason, the one area that dominance has reached has been around 72%. Last cycle, it got up maybe close to 74%. So we're just drawing that green line above there and seeing, does Bitcoin dominance still have a bit to go? Getting from the 64% area all the way to maybe, let's just say, 72%, something to keep an eye on. This would suck for our altcoins until that time if this were to play out. However, I do think this is too good of data to ignore, and just something to consider is that this is my strategy, not telling you what to do, but when I'm dollar cost averaging in to different altcoins or miners, I'm keeping this macro stuff in the back of my mind now. Some people are just solely focused on the Satoshi value, and they'll be in Bitcoin until that rotation is confirmed. If I see an altcoin on their US dollar pair at a good enough value, while I'm seeing some level of resistance on a dominance chart, I don't mind dollar cost averaging into it, especially since the last two cycles when we've had that Altseason, those altcoins can explode 3x, 5x, 10x, 20x if you're lucky. So just something to keep in mind with that rotation. Going over to Ethereum, I wanted to show you guys, let's take this fib off. The Ethereum's still flirting with that 618 fib, but I wanted to show you guys what I was talking about before, how when Bitcoin tops, we get that rotation. So I think there's nowhere better to show this than on something like Ethereum. Let's go over to the daily. I think this will show it even better. We're going to go back to 2017 and 2021. So here's 2017. Obviously, the pink line is Bitcoin. Take a look at Bitcoin, where it is and where Ethereum was. Ethereum around $700, got all the way to 1,400. So dang near 2x in about a month's worth of time, 3-4 weeks. And then 2021, this cycle, or the last cycle, we saw Bitcoin topping here, and Ethereum was around $2,200, and it got up to 4,500, somewhere around there. But again, nearly a 2x from that top when we had it. Now, yes, we had that double top. If we throw on Bitcoin dominance with Ethereum, I think we can also see how this moves together. We'll go Bitcoin dominance here. So look at when Ethereum gets that final pump, how Bitcoin dominance is turning over. Now, this is also why we look at Ethereum or the Ethereum Bitcoin pair. Here's when Bitcoin dominance tanked in 2017. Again, when it's tanking, look how much Ethereum's running. So Bitcoin dominance, again, that means 65% of all money in crypto is in Bitcoin. When that is dropping off, that is when we see altcoins. Ethereum is the top altcoin, really pumping, maybe even doing somewhere around a 2x. It sounds hard to believe. I see a lot of people losing faith in it. But gotta say, when retail is getting pushed out of the market, that tells me that smart money is probably going to be looking at getting in, especially when people are giving up on fairly good deals. Let's go over to total three. Total three, we have a couple things going on. So overall, this ascending channel, descending channel. We're again probably a little bit wedged here. We'll see what happens if we break down or up. But total three, in the past, when total three is broken above its former all-time high, we were on our way to Altseason. We flirted with that at the end of last year. So if total three continues to climb this and get to that 1.15 trillion dollar mark through this channel, then I'd be taking a look at, maybe we can find a 1618 fib extension or target to look for, and that could be as high as 1.67 trillion. You can see last cycle it got to the 2618, almost the 3618. So got to the 2618 there at that initial alt season. So I'd be watching those fibs on total three. The fibs were a good indicator last time. Total three, one of the charts to have in your rotation. Now this is others dash Bitcoin, and others is the total market cap outside the top 10 cryptos. So if you go outside of the top 10, everything Cardano underneath, and you add all the market caps together and you divide that against Bitcoin, that means that the total altcoin market cap, again, we're now looking at all the large caps really now. We're taking a look at the medium, large to small caps. That takes up 11% of against what Bitcoin's market cap would be. So we do have another fib level down here. We broke under the 382. And so, just something to keep in mind is that we may hit lower levels on the altcoin pairs, but when this starts violently going up, and you can see this last two cycles, others dash Bitcoin went down and then boom, it rockets up quick, man. It rockets up quick. It was bottoming here in December of 2017. Again, that was within a month of when altcoins exploded. So if you're giving up at the bottom or in this area, you're going to miss out on what's to come. Even last cycle, it was steadily climbing up, really sold off or really lost its value against Bitcoin there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, boom, we had this big move for the next 3-4 months. So I know this sucks to see, but one of the things is you got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to risk it for the biscuit, and if you don't have any skin in the game, you can't capitalize on when you have those good deals like now. So I know it sucks to see, but this is something to watch for. And also, we can throw on maybe some RSI indicators. Let's just do our regular one, and something to look at. Are we seeing any sort of divergence here? From these dips, you can see that maybe we're forming a base here on the RSI, and the overall values going down. So maybe there's some bullish divergence on our way that can kind of springboard us back to the upside. Let's take a look at tether dominance, and then we'll go over to total three and Ethereum Bitcoin pairing. Tether dominance, something I've been watching for is this is slowly done this rotation over, is eventually going to break down where we have these areas where tether goes down. And maybe I got to take a step back here for anyone that doesn't know. Right now, tether has a percent of 4.81%. That means 4.81% of all crypto money is in tether. What is tether? Tether is $1. You retain your Satoshi value of $1. So if the market's not doing well and you're worried about volatility, that would be something to watch for to maintain your purchasing power there with tether. But when tether dominance goes down, it's usually a risk-on environment for tether. Now, let's throw on our moving averages, because we encountered some resistance here at our moving averages. And so tether, if it all of a sudden moves down, which it could be setting up to do, then we're looking at 3.5% to 4%, and Bitcoin could really pump during that time. So one of those indicators to watch for. And in the past, when tether has gone down, we've seen the market pump. And so keep this chart on your list of things to watch for. All right, let's go over to Ethereum Bitcoin, and then we'll go to total three Bitcoin, and maybe we'll also just finish off with Bitcoin here. So Ethereum Bitcoin, It looks like it could go a little lower to that 1% area. Not looking that great at all. It did encounter that resistance there at the 236. So I do wonder, did Ethereum Bitcoin bottom? We're going to take a look, see if there's some higher lows. If all of a sudden Ethereum Bitcoin starts making support at that 0.15236 level, something to keep an eye on. Let's put on our moving averages again, and you can see we are quite detached. And inversely, when I'm taking a look at assets and we have the chart flipped and it gets very detached from its moving averages, I look for it to find somewhat of a base or support to get back to the mean. So if it can get back to that level and all of a sudden start breaking through those resistance areas, then I think we could see some very violent moves very quickly, like we have in the past. You can see here in 2017, again, look at how low Ethereum Bitcoin got before rocketing up. So that was at the absolute lows. If he would have given up then, he would have missed out on all those lows and discounts before Altseason began. And I think a lot of people got disillusioned by last cycle. We had this nice general trend up. I am still looking for maybe more violent moves if we are to have a 4-year cycle and really rocket up there. So something to keep in mind. Getting above, by the way, two of the main indicators between being bullish and bearish are the macro 382, when we draw a fib from the high to the low, and our 50-week moving average. So if we are able to get above both those, which are right next to each other, that is going to be risk on time, and that could go really quick like it has in the past. So you can see last cycle, when it got above the 382 and the 50-week, that's when we had Altseason. So something to keep in mind. Let's go over to total 3 divided by Bitcoin. So total 3, total market cap outside of Bitcoin and ETH. And we're just comparing all the cryptos, even the large caps, against it. And, something that hurts to see. I was hoping that 618 would hold. It didn't, but we see this really breaking down. So are we setting up for another V-shaped recovery? We can go back to 2017. You can see right here, 2017, its first cycle, it was chopping down here and then violently within weeks moved up. And then last cycle, again, this kind of looks like others a little bit. We had this violent downturn and then a V-shaped recovery. So something to watch for. Are we going to get this violent downturn, maybe a little bit more pain, and then V-shaped recovery? Some of that's kind of lining up with, if you watch my stock videos, how quantitative easing could be coming back into the market sometime soon. And if it does, maybe that could be a catalyst for riskier assets, our altcoins, to really pump there at the end. All right, let's go back over to, before we go there, let's take a look at the RSI on this one quick, and then we'll go back over to Bitcoin and wrap it up. So RSI, Relative Strength Index, just taking a look here to see, we could be having some bullish divergence. We see the base of strength kind of moving up, and we see the overall value going down. So we do want to see some bit of a reversal here. You can see we're very oversold. We'll look to see where that happens. I'll be keeping you guys up to date on that. Again, one of the things I'm going to do in shorts, in my short videos, is I'm just going to be focusing on one indicator for a minute, talking about that, sharing it out. We'll see how they do. And yeah, we'll go from there. All right, as far as Bitcoin, I wanted to just run through some various indicators, just where it is right now, sort of a mini indicator special. Speaking of divergence, I would say this does have me a touch concerned as far as maybe a bearish divergence goes. But when we go out to the monthly, I do wonder, do we have some more room to run? Have we really reached that peak? Something to keep an eye on there with Bitcoin. But if we go over to some other indicators, we've been talking about the ultimate RSI indicator, how this still has room to run. If we just go from those peaks, shows we haven't quite topped yet, but do keep an eye out on these things. If we start hitting these areas, you do want to be on your toes. Stochastic RSI, we can see this one still has room to run. Now this has started to flip positive, so This is a good monthly signal. On the weekly, it's already started to turn up. We were wondering if it would do that. So stochastic, I'd say macro-wise, looking kind of juicy. If we go over to the MACD, yeah, the MACD just kind of hovering still positive. I was hoping for more of a positive move from that. But, is this going to be coming back up again? That could be a big move for Bitcoin. Any other indicators to look at here? I think that'll be good. We'll turn on our moving averages again, just to leave it there. So yeah, Bitcoin, I do like how it's testing that channel on the daily, looking like it's making it into support. If that holds, then maybe we get a big move soon, coming via, from the positive news, at least in the stock market recently. Maybe it's not much today, but maybe we could see Bitcoin test that 113 and really pop off. Hopefully, we'll see. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hope you all are enjoying your summer and getting outside, getting away from charts, not obsessing over charts too much. But yeah, keep an eye out for the short videos and some different things I'm going to be experimenting with this channel. So as always, thank you guys for watching, subscribing, liking, all that stuff. Appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful week. Take care.